I love coffee. How did it all start? Well, I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm also going to give you the 6 reasons why I still love coffee. Hi, I'm Donna, and I am very happy that you stopped by. So, it all started when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and my dad showed me how to make his cup of coffee. That's what introduced me to coffee. Not drinking it, of course, but the introduction to coffee. So he told me that he took his coffee with 3 teaspoons of sugar. I know, a lot of sugar. And then he said, with the milk, he looked at me and he said, make the coffee your color. And I'm just like, what? Like, what? And he said, make it the same color as you. Put that much milk in there. So I put my hand next to the cup of coffee and I poured in some milk and I stirred it. And I poured in a little bit more. And I'm like, not quite there. Then it was the same color as my hand. And I stirred it up and gave it to him. And he said, perfect. That was my introduction to coffee. Now, of course, like I said, I couldn't drink it. My parents didn't let me drink it. But every now and then, they'd let me have a sip. A sip. That's how I knew how sweet that coffee was. But I didn't start drinking coffee until years and years later when I went to law school. Law school was the first reason why I still love coffee. Civil procedure and criminal law at 8:30 in the morning required caffeine. Caffeine. Now, I went to school in Chicago and I lived in the western suburbs. So I had to take the train to school. That meant I had to get up really early so that I was in class by 8:30. That's why I needed the caffeine. Reason number 1. After law school and I started working, I loved coffee so much by that time that I wanted to make my own. Before I just bought it every day, but then I wanted to make my own. So I got a coffee maker and I wanted to grind my own beans. I thought that would make it taste even better. And these are the next 3 reasons why I still love coffee. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Oh, so good. The percolating sound of my coffee preparing itself for me. I loved it. I loved it. And the taste. Absolutely delicious. I was totally sold on coffee. And I am now drinking coffee every day. Every day. After many years of working in Chicago and living in the western suburbs, I moved even further out. And so now, for those of you who know Chicago, you know in the city you're able to take the trains, but when you're in the suburbs, you take the Metro. So I took the Metro to work. And when I went to the Metro train station, there was this guy who owned a coffee shop there. And I would see him in the mornings, and he was a really interesting person. Have you ever known someone who has just had a variety of enterprises and jobs? He was a bouncer and a real estate guy, and he just did a bunch of things. And his current occupation was the owner of this coffee shop. He was a really nice guy. Well, he would pour the coffee, and then I'd get on the Metro, and I had a 45-minute ride. So my 5th reason for loving coffee was that I would sit next to the window with this steaming hot cup of coffee, and I would just reflect on what I had to do that day, on things that were going on in life. So it was a time of reflection for me. So that's reason number 5. While I retired in 2019, I have caffeine, the aroma, the percolating sound, the taste, and time of reflection. Reason number 6, when I sit down to take that first sip of coffee, I think of the beginning of a new day to do whatever I want. That's reason number 6. Speaking of doing whatever I want, one of the other things that I wanted to do when I retired was to travel more. One of my trips was to Medellin, Colombia. I'm also studying Spanish and learning Spanish, which I love. And I've talked about that in some other videos. But I went to Medellin with this immersion group. And one of the activities that we did was to go to a cafetal or planta de café. a coffee plantation. Do you know how happy I was? We had to climb up this, it looked like a mountain, but they were huge hills that were just plantations. They were beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Miles and miles of coffee plantations. And when we climbed to this kind of open area where we were able to look around and look down over the landscape, we were in this kind of open area where you were able to sit down. And our tour guide for this gave us all these different cups of coffee to sample. Absolutely delicious. One of the flavors was a cherry flavor. Ugh, it was so good. And the last thing I did before I left the side of that mountain was to buy a bag of coffee to take back home with me. So those are my 6 reasons for why I still love coffee. If you love coffee, tell me about it in the comments. Tell me what it is that you love or you enjoy the most about coffee. Another thing that I want to tell you is that a few years ago, I was talking to my oldest son, who's now 26, and we were just talking about memories. And I asked him what were some of his most vivid childhood memories. And he told me the smell of coffee and music. He said, Mom, you drank coffee every morning. I remember the coffee smell, and you played music all the time. And that's true. I listen to music all the time. I love music. Not that long ago, I was talking to my youngest son. I asked him, so what are your memories? This is what Josh told me. What are some of your memories? And he's like, Mom, the coffee, for sure. Every day, the coffee smell and music, because you played music all the time. Of course, I remember. You still do it now, which is true. Every morning, coffee. And I listen to music still, all the time. So that's my story. I hope that you enjoyed the video. And if you enjoyed it, like it. And if you think you'd enjoy this channel, I would be delighted if you subscribed. I'll see you in the next video. Here's my cup from Medellin, Colombia, my coffee mug. I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now.